So if we're doing songs that always make you cry, it's something that I don't go back to often because it's associated in my mind with people who've passed away. So it has to be Alter Bridge's In Loving Memory. And I know that Alter Bridge have these big, stupid, they did the wrestling theme for Edge and whatever, but if you're a proper Alter Bridge fan, if you've actually gone beyond that surface level stuff, then you'll find that they are incredible. Miles Kennedy is an incredible wordsmith, Mark Tremonti the same, but they have these great anthemic, touching songs that in Loving Memory's case, was written by guitarist Mark Tremonti on the original album, but before they became Alter Bridge, this big thing. And he just wrote it about his mum passing away. And there's some phenomenal lyrics in there, which I'm not going to read out because I'll just end up crying again. But just, there's a really great version that they do that's on the live DVD from the Amsterdam DVD. I think it's from 2007, where Miles sort of puts the microphone out to the crowd and just says, look, this song is for everybody that we've loved and lost. And that song always encapsulates that for me. Alter Bridge have always had a way of hitting the heartstrings, laser-focused heartstring targeting when they were at their best. And yeah, lyrically, compositionally, tonally, that song has everything. So if I ever want a big cry, I'll stick on In Loving Memory. They have other ones too, like Watch Over You. They've gone back to that sort of that mentality a couple of times. Their biggest song, Blackbird, is actually written about Mark Morse, which is someone who passed away, who gave Miles his first guitar. Things like that, but there's In Loving Memory, it's the lyrics. It's always the lyrics, and there's a sustained high note at the end that I just feel like is a real sort of send-off for whoever you needed to pay tribute to. So yeah, that song is always associated with, like I said, a couple of people who passed away very close to me, and so there's that. But the actual song itself is a phenomenal piece of musicianship, and I would totally recommend it. Even if you're all big old sneery, ooh, it's Alter Bridge, just give it a shot. Just whack it on, get lost in that song. It's gorgeous.
So there are a few songs that make me cry, actually, and of course there are, because I'm very soft. First one I want to mention is Declan O'Rourke's We Didn't Mean to Go to Sea, which is just a lovely song by a lovely guy with a lovely voice. You should listen to it. But there's no story behind that one. The other one has much more of a sad story, and it is sad, but it's happy in the end. It gets there, don't worry. The song in question is Cat Power's cover of Sea of Love, which famously featured on the Juno soundtrack, which is partly why it makes me cry. Not because I don't like Juno, quite the opposite in fact. So I have a son. He is now 3 years old. This is him up here in this picture. That's his name over my shoulder, George. And he obviously is my greatest achievement, apart from being on YouTube talking about music that I don't like. So when George was born, I went through something that most men don't go through, not childbirth, postnatal depression, which is a very important thing to talk about because people don't talk about it enough, not in women, not in men, and it's a very devastating thing that completely turns your life upside down. It makes you feel like you're not good enough to be a parent, fundamentally, and it challenges your very existence. It is not very nice. Same as all sort of mental health disorders or imbalances, and it was a tough time, and I watched Juno in the midst of this when George was very little, and there's a part in it, the Sea of Love part in fact, where Juno has to give up the baby at the end, and it's pretty devastating, even though Juno is this sort of quirky character and she doesn't really, that it would be silly for her to keep the baby, and that she would be sort of ruining her life and also destroying the life of the prospective mom who was going to take the baby on. But it's just such a horribly emotional part of that film that would have been like that without context, but I was going through a thing where I didn't feel like I was good enough to be a dad, to be honest. And then this song came on and imprinted on me in such a way that now when I hear it, it still absolutely destroys me. I am better now, and there is a happy ending. It's him, of course. But yeah, it's just, it doesn't see, like, the way music associates with feelings is impossible to ignore, and it continues to this day. So, happy ending. This is George. And who's the best?
Me.
High five.
It's quite incredible how music can make you feel so many different emotions, whether it's happiness or sadness. And obviously throughout everybody's life, there's loads of different artists who have produced songs which have made you feel all of these different emotions. And in terms of sadness, there's always been one track from a film soundtrack, and that song is called Married Life from the Disney Pixar film Up. And I wish I was joking, but that song is just brutally sad. It's extremely harrowing, and obviously in the film you follow the main protagonist as he grows old, and then his wife passes away, and it's just him just journeying through life with her, all in the short span of like 3.5 minutes. And Jesus Christ, it's just unbelievably sad, and like it doesn't need to be that sad, but that's just how life is, isn't it, really? It's just, it has its ups and downs, and the song is really well composed. It's done by a guy called Michael Giacchino, and it's just starts off positive and then it goes sad and then up and down and up and down. That's just how life is, really, isn't it? And it's a very, very well orchestrated song as well. And I decided to listen to the track without the visual aid of the film to try and see if I could separate the audio from the visual and all that stuff. And it turns out that the song on its own is just as sad, because you not only do you obviously think about the film, but you also attach it to your own life memories and stuff, don't you? And it's just like, it makes you think, and it's a really, really well composed piece. And I'm going to attach it in the Spotify below so you can have a listen to all of these songs, I guess. But that's really sad. And how it ends with that piano notes, just single piano notes, just playing, as you can just imagine. But Carl, the main protagonist of Up, walking away from the funeral place, and it's like, oh, good Lord. And it just works a treat, I guess.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you, the older I get, the more of a crier I become, so it's not really rare for something to set me off these days, but one song that's always guaranteed to get the waterworks running, or at least the emotions high, is 17 by Sharon Van Etten, which is a song that came out a few years ago, and even after hundreds of listens, it doesn't get any worse. In fact, it just gets better. This is a song essentially about not necessarily regret, but certainly recollection. It's about being a bit older and walking through streets that you used to know like the back of your hand, and looking at what's changed and thinking about where you were when you were 17 compared to where you are now. And there's, throughout the song, it's quite an upbeat song, but there's this kind of wailing in the background that almost feels like it's from the future. Sharon Van Etten, she is looking back in her past self and kind of getting into that mentality and thinking about where she's from, where she is now, and more importantly, what her younger self would think of the person that she's become. And that is something that is just a theme that gets me in anything, whether it's movies, whether it's TV shows, whether it's games, whether it's music. The idea of looking back, reflecting on what your life used to be like, and whether or not you've kind of done your ideals justice. And there's a brilliant, excellent, harrowing moment towards the end of the song where the vocals just kind of become this raw wail of emotion as she says, I know what you're gonna be, I know that you're gonna be, you're crumbling just to see, afraid that you'll be just like me. And that final line, afraid you'll be just like me, afraid that you've become the person that you never wanted to become, and that you might have not live up to the ideals that you used to have, sends me every single time. I get like goosebumps because it's just so powerful, the idea that you've come this far and you might have turned into someone that you never kind of wanted to become. In interviews, she's talked about how this is kind of a song about, you know, your parents know best. And that's something I can relate to as well. When you're young, you think that, you know, your parents' advice is kind of stupid because you almost don't see them as people who have been through experiences. But then you get a bit older and you realize they've been through a lot and they're just trying to, you know, do the best for you. And you don't listen to them because you need to do your own thing, and that's fine. But that kind of connection between a future generation and not appreciating that when you're younger is also something that kind of gets me and makes me regretful about my life. So yeah, this is something that manages to hit every time. I was walking to work when we could walk to work one day, happy as Larry, and I was listening to Song Exploder, which is a really great podcast that breaks down songs, and Sharon was talking through this track, and it got to that bit at the end where you have the raw vocals, and it was just those vocals isolated, and I remember walking on the quayside and just starting bawling my eyes out on a random Tuesday morning before I got to work, otherwise relatively happy, because the song just hit me in that line and that kind of entire verse and the sentiment behind it. It's something else, and everyone should listen to it.
So a song that makes me cry every time I listen to it is actually a song from the soundtrack of the Life is Strange game, and it's called In My Mind by Amanda Palmer. And it's basically a song about how she envisioned her future and it's not turning out the way that she thought it would be. And she basically says about how, like, you know, I'm not the person that I want to be right now, and, like, you know, that she thought she was going to be in a different place, in a different stage of life, and look different, and all that sort of stuff. And she talks about, you know, being like in a state of fitness that she wasn't intending to be, and it just really resonates with me, and I can really relate to it. And it just, I think that it really just starts to hit home with some personal struggles that I have had in my life. And what's nice is that by the end of the song, she kind of realizes, actually, you know what, screw that, that's not the person I want to be anymore. I am the person that I am, and I'm happy being this person, and I don't want to be the person that I thought I wanted to be. And yeah, it just makes me really not sad, but it just kind of hits home and just makes me cry every time, because I try to sing along with it, and it's quite an upbeat sort of quirky song, but I think just the lyrics just really hit home with me and really resonated with me. And just yeah, it's just one of those things that when you listen to it, you're like, I can relate to that. And it's sort of kind of changed my mind about a few things, and being like, yeah, I, you know, sometimes may not be in the exact position that I thought I was going to be or that I wanted to be. I may not be in the exact fitness or look the way that I thought I was going to be when I, you know, my past self would have thought, you know, by 27 I would have been doing this and I would have looked like this and I would have been super fit and all this sort of stuff. So, but at the end of the day, life gets in the way sometimes, and you just have to kind of deal with what you're dealt. And it's sort of like, actually, do you know what? I'm happy, I'm doing the things I love, I get to do stuff like this, and yeah, maybe I don't want to be the person that I thought I wanted to be.
Right, so for songs that made me cry, we are back in my emo/scene period once again, which is where I live apparently, and where all things must come to a head in these music videos. So we're back there again in my emo days, talking about emo songs that made me cry, because that's what emos do, isn't it? Get emotional and cry. And here I am again, being a little emo girl, talking about my little emo tears that relate to two songs in particular. Now, these two songs, they came from that period of time when all the pop punk bands, when all of the other like post-hardcore, anything that had like a guitar and a bit of a rocky sound, decided to release their one acoustic song that would just make you intensely emotional and have all the feels. And I did have the feels at 14 years old. These were very intense songs. And the two that I'm going to bring mention to are Remembering Sunday by All Time Low, which is an absolute bop and still brings out that horrible, emotional, oh my god, nobody gets me like these guys do feeling. And If It Means a Lot to You by A Day to Remember, because oh hell, that is my big shower song that I have to blast out whilst I'm pretending I'm doing the female part, being like, oh my god, I can't stay here, with all the shower water running down and my tears in the midst of it. They're absolute bangers, they're amazing songs, and they are very emotional and heavy hitting with all these big love themes, etc. But yeah, if you're going to have a band that releases one acoustic song, you have to make it the banger, and All Time Low and A Day to Remember absolutely did. And yeah, I don't sound like I'm going to cry about it, because they're too good, they're too exciting, they're two wonderful songs. But I can confirm, upon seeing them live, I have had the single tear run down my face from like, oh my god, this is too intense, I can't cope with it. So standing there with the people on everyone's shoulders and the lighters going and me going, oh, I never left 14 years old, I'm stuck here forever. And you know what, I'm happy about it. I'm happy about it. I'm happy it brings out these emotions. I'm happy I can feel to these songs. And that's all I've got to say about it. I'm a horrible little emo, and the horrible little emo tunes still get my horrible little emo tears flowing. Bangers, the both of them. Emotional bangers. Bangers of the heart, really, aren't they?
Okay, so hands up, I kind of struggled with this one because I'm not really a big
crier. Like, nothing wrong with being a crier. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh my god, crying's such a beta cuck thing to do, and then punches a hole in my mother's living room wall every time Star Wars casts a woman. I think the world would be a better place if more of us cried. I just am not one of those people. But there is a song which has made me cry at least once, and does always just kind of hit quite hard whenever it's on, and that is First Time Ever I Saw Your Face by Roberta Flack. Now, I have mentioned this in another video because it is at the end of X-Men Days of Future Past, and when it came on in that film, I blubbed like a small baby, but that was because I've been out the night before, old friends, went to karaoke, ended up singing this song, then we all went our separate ways. The next day, with a crippling hangover, I went to the cinema, saw this film, and in the nice scene at the end, the same song played, and it was all too much, and I was just a complete mess for about 5 minutes, but it's not the reason it gets me every time. That's why it got me that time. The rest of the time, I just think it's just such a beautiful piece of music. I've been incredibly fortunate with the relationships I've had in my life, like friends, girlfriends, best friends. I've had more than my fair share of just amazing people who, for reasons I do not understand, have allowed me into small or large parts of their life over the years. And just, it always gets me that those first moments, which is what this song is about, just pass you by without really, like, you realizing. Like, someone can become the most important person in the whole world to you, and you might not even like them that much when you first meet. So every time I hear this song, not only is it a beautiful piece of music that reminds me of that time I cried my eyes out in the cinema, it just kind of reminds me to, I don't know, appreciate things a bit more. It's a beautiful piece of music, and it should remind you to look at all the beautiful things around you, I guess. It doesn't make me cry. I'm not a big crier, but if I was a big crier, I would cry to this song every single time like a goddamn baby. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.